So, welcome to the second week with the Honda VTR1000 SP1 RC51. It's a mouthful, that, isn't it? So, just been up to Box Hill. It's a nice slow poodle up there. And to my surprise, the palms of my hands were aching. I didn't realise I'm obviously thrown that little bit more forward on this than my Fireblade 954 of the same year, so this is a bit more racy position. It doesn't stand out to me until that moment. I don't feel like it until I was riding slowly. A bit more spirited ride so far on the way home, and it's not the same feeling. Watching back footage of last week, I probably made a mistake in saying that this gearbox is lovely. It's not terrible, don't get me wrong, but it's not as smooth as I initially thought. There have been a few moments where it's quite clunky. And it just feels like it's not so happy selecting certain gears. Mainly between second and third, I'd say. Which is where you don't want it, because you're obviously going quite slow then, or pulling around a corner. And that said, still such fun. Such a fun bike. Stay away from 3000 revs, Alex. Keep it there where you are. 4000 sounds like you're thrashing it, even though you're just poodling along, but you get it to 3000, it just sounds like, oh, I don't like this one bit. But yeah, VTR1000 SP1 RC51. This is a 2002 model, just before the SP2, I believe, which from what I understand has some improvements, mainly in the fueling, and gets rid of that 3000 rev jerkiness. See if I can try and display that. Can you hear that? Just like it's not happy at all. Yeah, the SP2 apparently gets rid of that. I've not ridden one, so I can't comment. So 194 kilos apparently dry. My 954, and I'm just going to say now, I'm sorry to keep referring to my 954, but it's what I ride all the time, so I'm comparing it to that. So my 954 is meant to be, I think, 169 kilos if I remember correctly, and this thing does not feel 25 kilos heavier. And, 25 kilos is 25 bags of sugar. It doesn't seem like that, especially not when you're riding it, but even when you're moving it around, it doesn't. Maybe because it's that much leaner. Sitting on the tank, obviously not on the tank, but behind the tank, because the bike's thinner, because of the layout, obviously it being a V-twin, one big giant cylinder at the front, one big giant cylinder at the back, not wide like an inline 4. It feels like your knees are a lot closer together, and it feels more of a racy position in that respect. But I can feel that the palms of my hands are a little bit red, probably. I could just feel that weight pushing me a bit. Now I'm 5'10", 13 stone, so if you're taller and heavier than that, you might struggle a little bit, unless you mess around with set of rear sets, adjustable rear sets, and change your position a little bit. 24.5 degrees of rake. Now, rake, for those that don't know, is the angle basically of the headstock or of the forks. If you can imagine a chopper, you've got a lot of rake. You've probably got, oh, God knows, probably about 90 degrees. No, probably about 70 degrees of rake, something like that, because you've got your front wheels well far forward. But what that does is it's stable at high speeds. Stable at high speeds, but come to try and turn a corner, you're gonna have a nightmare. To put it into context, 24.5 degrees. The 954 is 23.5 or 23.8, I believe, degrees of rake. And the majority of people that own a 954, and me too, find it a bit twitchy. So it's a little bit too fast turning, a little bit too unstable at speed, so you end up putting a steering damper on it. I don't think this needs a steering damper. I think it's nice and stable, but I don't notice it's got a turning problem at all. It's got a little bit of more. But then that's probably because it's a V-twin. You've got, like I say, one big cylinder at the front, one big cylinder at the back. The bike is, although slimmer, it's therefore more difficult to make any kind of V-shaped bike short. You've got to put a radiator in front of those cylinders, and obviously you want to stop the front wheel from hitting that radiator. I think it was 139 or 136 brake horsepower, and the 954 is, I think, 150 or 154, something like that. You can't notice the difference. This bike's heavier on paper, less powerful on paper, but it doesn't feel it in real life, which is what matters really, isn't it? 76, I think it is, pounds-feet of torque. The 954 having a bigger engine, I think is just above that. I think it's around 90 foot-pounds of torque. And I think it's not a bad idea to compare to the 03 954, because you've got completely different layouts of bikes with the same intention really. Very similar cc, 999cc on this, 954 cc obviously on the Fireblade. And the 03, my 03 Fireblade is the same as the 02, which is the same as the year this was made. So similar year, similar eras, different engine layouts, same manufacturer, but what do you get for a twin rather than a, as I've said numerous times, it's the most obvious thing, low down speed, not nice, just it's not for poodling around town, this thing. Well, what do we have here? Mr. Ferrari, and where do you think you're going? Bye-bye. So I thought I'll get her out at night, see how she performs. A lot of people like reviews of how a bike performs in the night, at night time, how the headlights are, how the dash is, etc, etc. Try and see if we can get a bit of high beam at some point. There you go. Nice bit of high beam. It's good. For a 20-year-old bike. This is Berry Hill, heading on up to Whiteways. And that's Whiteways right there. So let's have a little go down the hill. Lovely views. Normally, on a Sunday afternoon like this, over to your right hand side, you see where that silver Mercedes is parked. Biker Pics sit there, and they're a company that they'll send a guy out, photographer, and he'll take pictures of you as you come around the corner, trying to get your knee down, coming up the hill or coming down. And they're reasonably priced, and they've done a lot with Honda this year, and they were at our event for the Fireblade at Donington. Great people, thoroughly recommend them. Right, well the good news is I've become more comfortable starting these. Just don't panic. when it sounds like the battery's dead, just keep your finger on the button, don't give it any throttle when it starts. The bad news, I was intending to continue up the 272 up the lovely roads to Loomies, but as you'll see in a sec, the fuel lights come on, and looking up when the nearest fuel is, on the way to Loomies it's 13 miles. As much as I've taken a bit of a gamble sometimes, I don't particularly want to break down 3 miles away from the nearest petrol station. But it's late afternoon on a Sunday, beginning of October, so nearest petrol station coming this way is 5 miles away. There you go, fuel lights come back on again. So rather than risk it, I'm going to take a little pootle back towards home. We will get out on the 272 properly on this thing. Well, the roads around here ain't too bad. So that's part of the review, in it really. I filled this thing to the brim. Petrol at the moment's 99 one at Tesco's yesterday was, I think, £1.67 a litre. And the fuel light was on, and I filled this to the brim at 23 quid's worth of fuel. I thought it'd take more, but it didn't. I don't think I've done that much miles. I've not made a note, to be honest. I didn't expect it. I thought I'd get to Loomies before the fuel ran out, but rather than run the risk, notice.